Once upon a time, in Japan, a media franchise was created by Satoshi Tajiri that was centered on fictional creatures which humans can catch and train to battle each other for a sport. Nobody ever imagined that one day it would become the immensely popular franchise known only as Pokemon or Pocket Monsters. But how did Pokemon become such a renowned media franchise? And why did it become such an amazing game, playing card game, and TV show, and toys, and everything else you could even think of in movie, etc.? Was Rhydon the first Pokemon ever created? Is James Turner really the first Westerner to design Pokemon? Is it true that the Swords of Justice is based on the Three Musketeers? Is Cosmoem really dense? Did Pokemon have distinctly different names for a reason? It's time for me to answer all these questions and more, since this is ASMR. Aaron, back at it again with another daily video to help you relax. So lay back and enjoy the ride. I hope this video gets you through your day, or even better, I hope this read helps you gently fall asleep. I can't wait to get started. This is the tale of Pokemon.
The name Pokemon is a portmanteau of the Japanese brand Pocket Monsters. The term Pokemon, in addition to referring to the Pokemon franchise itself, also collectively refers to the 890 fictional species that have made appearances in Pokemon media as of the release of the 8th generation titles Pokemon Sword and Shield. Pokemon is identical in the singular and plural, as is each individual species name. It is grammatically correct to say one Pokemon and many Pokemon, as well as one Pikachu and many Pikachu. Pokemon Executive Director Satoshi Tajiri first thought of Pokemon, albeit with a different concept and name, around 1989 when the Game Boy was released. The concept of the Pokemon universe in both the video games and the general fictional world of Pokemon stems from the hobby of insect collecting, a popular pastime which Tajiri enjoyed as a child. Players are designated as Pokemon trainers and have 3 general goals: to complete the regional Pokédex by collecting all of the available Pokemon species found in the fictional region where a game takes place, to complete the national Pokédex by transferring Pokemon from other regions, and to train a team of powerful Pokemon from those they have caught to compete against teams owned by other trainers so they may eventually win the Pokemon League and become the regional champion. These themes of collecting, training and battling are present in almost every version of the Pokemon franchise, including the video games, the anime and manga series, and the Pokemon trading card game. In most incarnations of the Pokemon universe, a trainer who encounters a wild Pokemon is able to capture that Pokemon by throwing a specially designed, mass-producible spherical tool called a Pokeball at it. If the Pokemon is unable to escape the confines of the Pokeball, it is considered to be under the ownership of that trainer. Afterwards, it will obey whatever commands it receives from its new trainer, unless the trainer demonstrates such a lack of experience that the Pokemon would rather act on its own accord. Trainers can send out any of their Pokemon to wage non-lethal battles against other Pokemon. If the opposing Pokemon is wild, the trainer can capture that Pokemon with a Pokeball. increasing their collection of creatures. In Pokemon Go and in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go AE, wild Pokemon encountered by players can be caught in Pokeballs, but generally cannot be battled. Pokemon already owned by other trainers cannot be captured except under special circumstances in certain side games. If a Pokemon fully defeats an opponent in battle so that the opponent is knocked out, faints, the winning Pokemon gains experience points and may level up. Beginning with Pokemon X and Y, experience points are also gained from catching Pokemon in Pokeballs. When leveling up, the Pokemon's battling aptitude statistics, stats such as attack and speed, increase. At certain levels, the Pokemon may also learn new moves which are techniques used in battle. In addition, many species of Pokemon can undergo a form of metamorphosis and transform into a similar but stronger species of Pokemon, a process called evolution. This process occurs spontaneously under differing circumstances and is itself a central theme of the series. Some species of Pokemon may undergo a maximum of 2 evolutionary transformations, while others may undergo only 1, and others may not evolve at all. For example, the Pokemon Pichu may evolve into Pikachu, which in turn may evolve into Raichu, following which no further evolutions may occur. Pokemon X and Y introduce the concept of Mega Evolution, by which certain fully evolved Pokemon may temporarily undergo an additional evolution into a stronger form for the purpose of battling. This evolution is considered a special case, and unlike other evolutionary stages is reversible. In the main series, each game's single-player mode requires the trainer to raise a team of Pokemon to defeat many non-player character trainers and their Pokemon. Each game lays out a somewhat linear path through a specific region of the Pokemon world for the trainer to journey through, completing events and battling opponents along the way, including foiling the plans of an evil team of Pokemon trainers who serve as antagonists to the player. Excluding Pokemon Sun and Moon and Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the games feature 8 powerful trainers, referred to as gym leaders, that the trainer must defeat in order to progress. As a reward, the trainer receives a gym badge, and once all 8 badges are collected, the trainer is eligible to challenge the region's Pokemon League, where 4 talented trainers referred to collectively as the Elite Four challenge the trainer to 4 Pokemon battles in succession. If the trainer can overcome this gauntlet, they must challenge the regional champion, the master trainer who had previously defeated the Elite Four. Any trainer who wins this last battle becomes the new champion. All of the licensed Pokemon properties overseen by the Pokemon Company International are divided roughly by generation. These generations are roughly chronological divisions by release. Every several years, when a sequel to the 1996 role-playing video games Pokemon Red and Green is released, that features new Pokemon characters and gameplay concepts, that sequel is considered the start of a new generation of the franchise. The main Pokemon video games and their spin-offs, the anime, manga and trading card game, are all updated with the new Pokemon properties each time a new generation begins. Some Pokemon from the newer games appear in anime episodes or films months or even years before the game they were programmed for came out. The first generation began in Japan with Pokemon Red and Green on the Game Boy. As of 2020, there currently are 8 generations of main series video games. The most recent games in the main series, Pokemon Sword and Shield, began the 8th and latest generation and were released worldwide for the Nintendo Switch on November the 15th, 2019. Pokemon, also known as Pokemon the Series to Western audiences since 2013, is an anime television series based on the Pokemon video game series. It was originally broadcast on TV Tokyo in 1997. To date, the anime has produced and aired over 1,000 episodes divided into 7 series in Japan, and 22 seasons internationally. It is one of the longest currently running anime series. The anime follows the quest of the main character, Ash Ketchum, known as Satoshi in Japan, a Pokemon master in training, as he and a small group of friends travel around the world of Pokemon along with their Pokemon partners. Various children's books, collectively known as Pokemon Junior, are also based on the anime. A new 7-part anime series called Pokemon Twilight Wings began airing on YouTube in 2020. The series was animated by Studio Colorido. To date, there have been 23 animated theatrical Pokemon films, one in the making for July 2020, which have been directed by Kunihiko Yuyama and Tetsuo Yajima, and distributed in Japan by Toho since 1998. The pair of films, Pokemon the Movie Black Victini and Reshiram and White, Victini and Zekrom, are considered together as one film. Collectibles such as promotional trading cards have been available with some of the films. Since the 20th film, the films have been set in an alternate continuity, separate from the anime series. A live-action Pokemon film directed by Rob Letterman, produced by Legendary Entertainment and distributed in Japan by Toho and internationally by Warner Brothers, began filming in January 2018. On August the 24th, the film's official title was announced as Pokemon Detective Pikachu. It was released on May the 10th, 2019. The film is based on the 2018 Nintendo 3DS spin-off video game Detective Pikachu. Development of a sequel was announced in January 2019 before the release of the first film. Pokemon CDs have been released in North America, some of them in conjunction with the theatrical releases of the first 3 and the 20th Pokemon films. These releases were commonplace until late 2001. On March the 27th, 2007, a 10th anniversary CD was released containing 18 tracks from the English dub. This was the first English language release in over 5 years. Soundtracks of the Pokemon feature films have been released in Japan each year in conjunction with the theatrical releases. In 2017, a soundtrack album featuring music from the North American versions of the 17th through 20th movies was released. The Pokemon Trading Card Game, TCG, is a collectible card game with a goal similar to a Pokemon battle in the video game series. Players use Pokemon cards with individual strengths and weaknesses in an attempt to defeat their opponent by knocking out their Pokemon cards. The game was published in North America by Wizards of the Coast in 1999. With the release of the Game Boy Advance video games Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, the Pokemon Company took back the card game from Wizards of the Coast and started publishing the cards themselves. The Expedition expansion introduced the Pokemon e-trading card game, where the cards, for the most part, were compatible with the Nintendo e-reader. Nintendo discontinued its production of e-reader compatible cards with the release of Fire Red and Leaf Green. In 1998, Nintendo released a Game Boy Color version of the trading card game in Japan. Pokemon Trading Card Game was subsequently released to the US and Europe in 2000. The game included digital versions of cards from the original set of cards and the first 2 expansions, Jungle and Fossil, as well as several cards exclusive to the game. A sequel was released in Japan in 2001. There are various Pokemon manga series, 4 of which were released in English by Viz Media, and 7 of them released in English by Chuang Yi. The manga series vary from the game-based series to being based on the anime and the trading card game. Original stories have also been published. As there are several series created by different authors, most Pokemon manga series differ greatly from each other and other media such as the anime. Pokemon Pocket Monsters and Pokemon Adventures are the 2 manga in production since the first generation. Pokemon has been criticised by some fundamentalist Christians over perceived occult and violent themes and the concept of Pokemon evolution, which they feel goes against the biblical creation account in Genesis. Sat 2000, a satellite television station based in Vatican City, has countered that the Pokemon trading card game and video games are full of inventive imagination and have no harmful moral side effects. In the United Kingdom, the Christian Power Cards game was introduced in 1999 by David Tate, who stated, "Some people aren't happy with Pokemon and want an alternative. Others just want Christian games." The game was similar to the Pokemon trading card game, but used biblical figures. In 1999, Nintendo stopped manufacturing the Japanese version of the Koga's Ninja Trick trading card because it depicted a manji, a traditionally Buddhist symbol with no negative connotations. The Jewish civil rights group Anti-Defamation League complained because the symbol is the reverse of a swastika, a Nazi symbol. The cards were intended for sale in Japan only, but the popularity of Pokemon led to import into the United States with approval from Nintendo. The Anti-Defamation League understood that the portrayed symbol was not intended to offend and acknowledged the sensitivity that Nintendo showed by removing the product. In 1999, two 9-year-old boys from Merrick, New York, sued Nintendo because they claimed the Pokemon trading card game caused their problematic gambling. In 2001, Saudi Arabia banned Pokemon games and the trading cards, alleging that the franchise promoted Zionism by displaying the Star of David in the trading cards. A 6-pointed star is featured in the card game, as well as other religious symbols such as crosses they associated with Christianity and triangles they associated with Freemasonry. The games also involved gambling, which is a violation of Muslim doctrine. Pokemon has also been accused of promoting materialism. In 2012, PETA criticised the concept of Pokemon as supporting cruelty to animals. PETA compared the game's concept of capturing animals and forcing them to fight to cockfights, dogfighting rings and circuses, events frequently criticised for cruelty to animals. PETA released a game spoofing Pokemon where the Pokemon battle their trainers to win their freedom. PETA reaffirmed their objections in 2016 with the release of Pokemon Go promoting the hashtag "Gotta Free Them All." On December 16, 1997, more than 635 Japanese children were admitted to hospital with epileptic seizures. It was determined the seizures were caused by watching an episode of Pokemon, Den-no Senshi Porygon, most commonly translated Electric Soldier Porygon, Season 1, Episode 38. As a result, this episode has not been aired since. In this particular episode, there were bright explosions with rapidly alternating blue and red colour patterns. It was determined in subsequent research that these strobing light effects caused some individuals to have epileptic seizures, even if the person had no previous history of epilepsy. This incident is a common focus of Pokemon-related parodies in other media and was lampooned by the Simpsons episode 30 Minutes Over Tokyo and the South Park episode Chim Pokemon, among others. In March 2000, Morrison Entertainment Group, a toy developer based at Manhattan Beach, California, sued Nintendo over claims that Pokemon infringed on its own Monster in My Pocket characters. A judge ruled there was no infringement, and Morrison appealed the ruling. On February 4, 2003, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit affirmed the decision by the District Court to dismiss the suit. Within its first 2 days of release, Pokemon Go raised safety concerns among players. Multiple people also suffered minor injuries from falling while playing the game due to being distracted. Multiple police departments in various countries have issued warnings, some tongue-in-cheek, regarding inattentive driving, trespassing, and being targeted by criminals due to being unaware of one's surroundings. People have suffered various injuries from accidents related to the game, and Bosnian players have been warned to stay out of minefields left over from the 1990s Bosnian War. On July 20, 2016, it was reported that an 18-year-old boy in Chiquimula, Guatemala, was shot and killed while playing the game in the late evening hours. This was the first reported death in connection with the app. The boy's 17-year-old cousin, who was accompanying the victim, was shot in the foot. Police speculated that the shooters used the game's GPS capability to find the two. In the Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue beta, some Pokemon had distinctly different names than what we know them as now. For example, Coughing and Wheezing were named NY and LA respectively to represent the polluted air in New York and Los Angeles. Kabuto and Kabutops were named Atlantis respectively, as a reference to Atlantis. Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff had the adorable names of Pudding and Custard, and Gyarados had the much cooler name of Skullkraken. According to the Pokédex, Cosmoem is only 0.1 meters in height, yet weighs a whopping 999.9 kilograms. As a result, Cosmoem is tied with Joltik, Flabebe, Cutiefly, and Comfey as the smallest Pokemon, and tied with Celestia as the heaviest Pokemon. Cobalion, Terrakion, Virizion, and Keldeo are the legendary Pokemon collectively known as the Swords of Justice. The group is based on the French novel The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. British graphic designer James Turner, who works at Game Freak, became the first Westerner to officially design Pokemon in 2010. He designed 7 Pokemon for Pokemon Black and White, 2 for Pokemon X and Y, and another 2 for the Pokemon Sun and Moon. According to Ken Sugimori, the primary designer for the Pokemon games, Rhydon was the first Pokemon ever created. And so ends the tale of the hugely popular media franchise Pokemon that is loved by millions of fans all across the world.